Hey everyone, welcome back to the Meme Team, where we dissect the marketing strategies creating breakout cultural moments. Our guest this week is Jovian Gautama, VP of Memes at MemeLord Technologies. So he's going to fit right in.
Thank you for having me, Sonia.
Of course. Excited for today's chat. Okay, so we're going to start with F1. There was a lot of stuff that came out this week. I found out that Jovian is a fan, so we figured we'd really just, break it all down. So you, I guess, appreciated that Lando Norris one.
I can sense the hate in your voice when you say the name Lando Norris.
It's not hate. It's not hate. He's not one of my favorites,
No.
but
No,
hate
yes.
is a strong word.
I like McLaren. I guess Norris. I like Piastri more.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had a McLaren hoodie, but it's actually Daniel Ricciardo, which is super ironic.
Yeah.
But yes. So happy that they finally.
I would have
get their
preferred a
shit together.
Piastri win, if I'm honest. Oh my God, he was doing so well the whole season. Then it wasn't a couple, it was like 5 races where he kind of just messed everything up. And then,
And he's so
Norris
funny on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's really
Very
like
deadpan, yeah.
very deadpan, very funny, very memeable.
Yeah.
You should get him on this podcast somehow.
Yeah, right. I wish. He'd probably be like, I don't know about marketing.
Get his mom on the podcast.
That's right. Yeah, she's a hoot. She's a hoot and a half. I like her.
Yeah.
I like following her and all the jokes
Yeah.
that she's making about the races and everything. So,
Right.
well, awesome. So Cadillac F1 revealed that they're gonna reveal their livery during the Super Bowl on February 8th, which I thought was kind of perfect because we already know that American F1 fans are not really there all the way. They're always gonna want to support an American team more than, all the others. I actually talked to Vincenzo Landino, the F1 guy, about this cause, right? It's an American company, but they
Yes.
don't really brand themselves as an American team, right? And now we have Cadillac kind of coming out and pretty much taking that, that title, the way that Valtteri Bottas announced that he was going to be the driver he was riding the wakeboard with the American flag and like a can of something. And then obviously Sergio Perez, the Mexican driver, who, you can kind of count as an honorary American since it's both,
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
North America.
Yeah.
So I thought that, announcing it during the Super Bowl is a great way to kind of heighten the attention that's going to be paid to an American team at the biggest game that in America.
Actually, I just saw it on Reddit first with like basically a simple banner.
Mhm.
And like you said, the Super Bowl announcement is perfect because it's an American team. And there's a growing interest in Formula One in America is growing rapidly, and this livery is shown in the most American sporting events of all. So it aligns perfectly. And like you said, I think Cadillac, the opportunity for Cadillac here is to be the first team that's unapologetically American. And like you mentioned, like Haas was kind of like the first American team, but Gene has a cheap bastard, and so they don't really lean into it, right? It's kind of like, so I'm very curious how they will grab this opportunity and run with it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I do feel like they can win really big if they just super leaning into the Americanness in it.
Too.
Yeah. And like you said, Checo from Mexico is like basically like honorary American. They were in the Good Morning America, I guess, I think like 3 months ago. And just perfect match.
Yeah. I really think that you're right. I think just leaning into that, America, hardcore, fast cars, race cars, especially after the F1 movie did so well here, right?
Yes.
It's just kind of priming everything up. And, Americans like fast car. We have, NASCAR, we have IndyCar. So it won't surprise me that they glom onto the fastest car, that's racing right now. It's just that we've been wanting and needing an American team to kind of get behind. So I'm excited about that. And they've named Colton Huerta one of the reserve drivers. So that's another American driver who will hopefully eventually, move into one of the slots since, Bottas and Checo are both, kind of aging out of the sport.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, Colton Herta is a very poor, not poor, I mean, He's a poor guy. I guess he almost break into F1 and then just got pulled back again a couple of
Mhm.
times. So hope he gets his chance.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of F1, the movie, Apple also announced this week that they're the new
Yeah.
home of F1. I thought it was brilliant, actually, that they took the day that the championship was over to announce that F1 has a new home. On Apple. So that had kind of been in the works for like a while. And it finally was agreed to last year. And now they kind of, came out with a new commercial kind of showing the different ways that they're going to be showing the races, which I thought was really
Right.
interesting that I don't know if it's just concept art so far or if they've already developed that and are kind of getting it ready for that. But one of the things I saw that was really interesting was how easy they're going to make it to follow the different drivers when you're looking in at the actual race.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see how that actually, it becomes a real thing. And I think the huge opportunity here is for them to create the technology and the visuals to show F1 in a super interesting way, which is what they did with the movie, right?
Right.
Creating the cameras that they needed to show the car going that fast and that loudly. And so, yeah, I'm super excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and also like imagine the volume of content they can create from all
Mhm,
those different angles.
mhm,
And that'll be insane, especially with I don't know if they're gonna be doing something with the driver's radio.
mhm.
Imagine if it's more uncensored, I'm not really sure. But if they will make it happen, I think it'll be big. And I do hope other sports emulate that. Imagine
Mhm.
I'm a big baseball fan. I know you're a Dodgers fan,
Yeah.
and congratulations.
Thank you.
I just got mad at the Dodgers again a couple of minutes ago because they just signed like the Mets closer Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, I
Uh,
saw that.
and
You
I
can't
texted
if you can't win them, join them?
yeah I texted my friend like a Red Sox fan. It was like how is this keep happening? Um, but
People wanna
anyway,
win.
that is true. But anyway, if other sports can do the same, especially in MLB, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot of whenever go to YouTube and see umpire cams, I will click. Or like
Oh,
catcher's cams, I will
yeah,
click. Of
yeah, yeah.
everything mic'd up, I will click. Anything
Yeah.
to add more personality to the sports.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if Apple TV can be successful with Formula One, which already
Mhm.
kind of have lots of personality in it.
Right? Yeah.
Can other sports do the same with soccer, for example?
Mhm.
There's some matches where on YouTube you can see the refs cam and you
Mm,
see how people are talking. And that's super interesting content like for
yeah.
me who loves sports. So yeah,
Mhm.
I hope they pull it off.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, that's been one of the battles that the F1 has been having, right? Because the FIA has been trying to, get them to not say bad words when they're, in the car. And it's like you're in the heat of the moment
Yeah.
playing the sport or I mean driving, whatever. But to try to censor them at the moment that passions are running high, like I think it's such a bad thing to try to do because part of it is having those the voices going back and forth and it's like knowing that like they're super in it at the time
Yeah.
and they're basically saying what they're feeling, right? And I think you're right, like I wish they kind of had that in other sports. But yeah, it'd probably be a little bit more difficult because they have the helmet which has the camera, I
Yeah.
guess for
That is true.
baseball most of the hitters have you know
Yeah, yeah.
the
Yeah.
it'd
They have
be
the
a weird
GoPro
angle
there.
though. Mhm,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So yeah, that would be cool. Okay, and then just to finish out, since we talked about it before, the Carlos Sainz unicorn helmet. So for the last drive of the season, Sainz had his whole helmet feature Sparkles the unicorn, which was
Mhm.
like the wholesome story of like one of his young fans sending him the sticker, and he had been putting the sticker on his other helmets, but then for this one, it's like purple and pink and blue. I just thought it was such a like a neat way to, close out the story of like this fan
Mhm.
and the wholesome content that they'd been creating. And just really give props to the fan because ever since he had gotten the sticker, he'd been performing a lot better. So, obviously it gave him a little confidence boost, though he didn't do that well on this race. But
Yeah.
the point is that, he closed out the story with the fan.
Great driver though, great driver. Did they like make like merchandise out of
They
sparkles?
did. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then they were giving part of the, profits to the fan and her
Yeah.
family, so that was a, good way to, bring it back to them and what they had created.
I think it's something that actually other companies can emulate more, founder-led marketing or founder brand or something like that. Basically, how do you put a storyline inside your brand that people are invested in? I think it's a good thought experiment.
Yeah, I think that was like the biggest thing that I found about, this story where it's like, first of all, it's user generated content, right? Where like
Yeah.
they're participating eagerly, and it's giving you a different thing to focus on. The fact that, they were going back and forth, that it wasn't just something that felt they were taking advantage of, like you had the videos of like Carlos and Alex talking to the fan. Um, Acknowledging, Sparkles and the sticker, having the photos, showing that the unicorn sticker is on the helmet when he got onto the podium,
Yeah.
that first time, that really thanking, Sparkles and the little girl for
Yeah.
like the confidence and the inspiration. And so it was a lot of like, back and forth and really engaging with them. And I felt like that was the part that people were engaging with, is like, oh my God, like,
Yes.
look how cool this is. And then all of a sudden there's a turnaround of like him actually performing a lot better with like the car. And then the whole storyline of Williams themselves, right? Where it's like they went from like being the bottom, right, these past few years to being fifth, for the first time and like how long,
Yeah.
so it was kind of like everything just kind of, played into it. And I saw a lot of people actually comparing it to F1 the movie, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
you had then doing so poorly, like in the beginning, particularly Carlos Sainz, right? Like he was still figuring out the car and, not doing really well on the early part of the season. And then you have like the turnaround of like the Sparkles the unicorn, and then the car doing better, Sainz winning or getting the podium 2 times. So it's just kind of like that Hollywood story. So it's all just kind of like magical. And I think people
Yeah.
just like those type of like feel good stories. So it was kind of really cool.
And Drive to Survive.
Oh, I know, right? That's gonna make a really great episode.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So I wanted to discuss Granola Crunch, which I loved. It was the first time that they'd done it, and then Spotify Wrapped, which was The only thing I did like was the creator side, because I got some really cool stats about how this
Oh,
podcast is doing
really?
and how our fans actually really like it. But in terms of the Spotify Wrapped, it was just, it was fine, But one thing I did start noticing was that a lot of people started posting online that they're not trusting the data. They're like, why did this song show up in my top 5 when I know I haven't actually listened to it that long? So there really seems to be a core issue here where people are starting to lose trust in Spotify Wrapped, which is like kind of their biggest marketing campaign of the year, because they put, well, I think that's also questionable, right? I was gonna say they put so much work into it. I'm like, do they? Last year they got all this like,
That is true.
pushback because it was the first time that they started using AI, and people are like, yeah, it shows,
Yes.
But then what Spotify says is that there's so many users that it would be almost impossible to be able to create the personalization that you would need to, that they did before. Then people are like, well, but you did create it before up until last year.
Yeah.
So kind of where is that, right? So kind of to throw some stats here, Spotify Wrapped 2025 hit 200 million users in 24 hours. So that's 19% year over year growth from last year, and generated 500 million shares. So that's 41% year over year growth. So that's a huge like boost from last year, right? This is massive engagement after last year's AI flop. But underneath this viral success, people are calling out the accuracy, right? Where, they're showing that songs played daily, showing 20 listens. And just saying that it's, pretty fraudulent. Is it a data play? Is it the way that they're showing it? Is it that they're, prioritizing bigger artists over the smaller artists that people listen to on a daily basis? Whereas I wanted to bring in the example of Granola Crunch, which launched the exact same day with the opposite strategy, right? It was privacy first. They weren't really pushing people to share it. Honestly, I ended up sharing it because like the
Yeah.
personalized AI insights from meeting notes, mind you, were so interesting to me and funny that like I was like, oh my God, of course I have to share this. And it gave me such deep insights into the things that I talk about to my clients like on a daily basis, that I was like, oh my God, I actually didn't even think about myself in this way. But it did end up calling me the executive director of narrative alchemy. So I think that like they came up with enough interesting things like this, fake, granola promotion,
Yes.
that like it would make it interesting for you to share, right? And they were kind of making you aware of like things that I felt like were things that I wasn't really like noticing about myself and like the things that I talk about. Pretty regularly. So the fact that it was kind of pulling that information out from all the conversations that I've had, is what really works for me, right? And then the biggest thing is the fact that, people wanted to share it, right? Like these are
Mm.
pretty private, notes, like it's just your granola meeting notes, like who you're talking on a daily basis. The fact that they couched the really private like meetings and like shifted it over to a little bit more like generalized content about like what it is. So like mine was like very big on storytelling and marketing, talking about mission and vision, So it's all
Yeah.
these like key words in like marketing that like, most marketing people understand and know. And that knowing that that's your target audience because that's who you're going to share it with, right? It's like other marketers. Without sharing any of like the actual details, was what really made it work for me. Did you get your granola crunch this year or do you use granola?
I don't use
Oh,
granola.
you don't? Well, now you
Yeah.
have to.
Man, I really have to now because yeah, it looks so good. Before you shared the granola wrap, I saw someone on LinkedIn posted on it too, and I just commented on it like, "What makes it so good?" And he just
Mhm,
shared with me the whole thing. I think the best thing is that this is kind of general, but they kind of already know their users. I feel like
mhm,
they know what stats actually matter and how they package it in something that make you laugh or make you feel,
mhm.
oh, that's really funny or that's hilarious. And I don't think a lot of startups do the whole rap thing, but the problem was that they just like, here's your data instead of
Yeah.
packaging it into something that people wants to share. They come up
Mhm.
with the ultimate goal. Maybe like, I don't want to say, okay, you've updated 50,000 notes this year. I don't care about that. Like, so, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of startups in this past couple of years kind of fall into that trap. They're thinking, okay, I have this data. Okay, let's just present this data so they know what they've done this year. But no, you have
Mhm,
to add more than that. And it's kind of similar to I want to go back a bit to the Spotify thing. Like you said, they
mhm,
had like an increase in engagement
mhm.
compared to last year. I genuinely couldn't remember what is special about Spotify rap last year.
Yeah.
But
I think
this
that's part of the
year,
problem.
I think it is part of the problem. But this year, the listening age is really interesting.
Yeah. So I do wanna give them a shout out for that because they're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, clearly we need to do something new." So the fact that they, came up with this new thing. So the listening age is kind of, I guess, combines, the data of, like, all the music that you're listening to and, like, the years, and then based on, who in those demographics usually listens to that music, gave you this listening age, right?
Right.
Which on the one hand, yes, was, like, interesting because it was new, they'd never done it before. But on the
Yes.
flip side, I don't know. I feel like a lot of us listen to like older, like boomer music, say, right? Because it's like the
Yeah.
classics. And then they just gave you the age of being like 67. And you're like, okay, but no, I'm a cultured, a millennial who listens to all types of music, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just like the one that's around the age range of like, the music that was popular when you were a teenager or whatever,
What's your What's your Spotify age?
Mine was 34. So,
Are you serious? Mine
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
71.
What?
Yes. That's insane. I do listen to a lot of, like, old blues stuff, like the
Yeah.
Beatles, for example.
Hmm.
The oldest that I've seen, former I used to play in a band, and a
Hmm.
former, bandmate of mine, his listening age is 100.
Oh
Like,
my god.
that's the oldest I've ever seen. That is not a meme, by
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
100 because
What
he
does he
listens to,
listen
like,
to?
he listened to, like, 1920s blues, like,
Oh,
Robert
okay.
Johnson
Sure,
and
sure, sure.
stuff. I was like, "Dude, you're fucking old." Oh, sorry, can I swear here?
Yeah, 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 you're fine.
Okay, my bad.
This is an adult podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Kids
But
don't
yes,
work, right?
kids don't think about
Yeah.
Spotify Rap.
About
Maybe they
marketing.
do actually, yeah. But that's also interesting. I think the key to all the rap stuff is I
Mhm,
think you have to think about the end goal first, the story,
mhm,
instead of thinking about, okay, these are the data we have and then how do you package it? Maybe you should think the other way around. Okay, what's the shareable stuff that people would love, and then try to fit the database on it. Of course, there's a risk that you really want this goal to happen, and you start using fake data. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and that brings us back to the problem, right? Where, like, people are
Exactly.
like, "This doesn't make sense." But I think that's part of the problem with the listening age, right? It's like, I listen to
Yes.
jazz, I listen to hip hop, I listen to pop, and, across all of those, like, you just have different, like, tastes, like, and that's where it was kind of missing for me, like, I think what they could have done is like, "Oh, you have such an eclectic taste," right? But, like, why does that pair back to the age necessarily, you know?
Mhm.
Though they do have that category already, right? Where it's like they have the top 5 honors that you listen to, right?
Yeah.
Where I remember people complaining about that. Was it last year or the year before? Because they had kind of come up with these like weird categories, right?
I
Like
think this year
honky.
too. I think.
Right, right,
If
right.
I,
But were people complaining about it? Because that was like the year that they did it was
I
when
see.
people were like, okay, you're coming up with like random names for these genres just to try to like, drill down specifically into like what people actually listen to. But
The
yeah,
funny thing is, in non-English speaking countries, I think it's the other way around. They generalize it. I listen to Japanese music sometimes, and
sure.
if it shows up, and this is definitely not J-pop, like traditional Japanese music. So I think I
Yeah,
saw that people complaining about it. Like I'm not 100% sure, like
sure.
how deep is it? But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
Spotify needs to get their shit together. Honestly,
yeah, it's funny because, last year was the first time that I saw mostly on my timeline complaints, right? Whereas, and
hmm.
I think it was mostly because it was the AI. This
Yeah,
time around, it was mostly complaints as well. I didn't really get any like, oh, hey, look at my, Spotify list or like what I listen to. Most people were just complaining like, oh, this doesn't seem right, or the listening age, doesn't make sense. The genre. So the fact that like now most of the spin has become negative is something that they're gonna have to sort out, because if
yeah.
they're spending all this time an effort to
Or do
create this like
they?
marketing campaign, yeah, fair enough, right? Then like, is it gonna be worth it for them, right? Because honestly, I mean, it's not something I'm looking forward to. I feel like a lot of people used to look forward to it a lot,
Yeah,
but I will be looking forward to my granola crunch next year. So,
perfect.
because I only joined like in August, so the fact that from August to probably not even December, right? From August to November, they were able to capture all that, and I loved all the content. What are they going to be doing with like a full year worth of like notes?
That is true.
Um,
All right, you sold me on granola. Granola,
yeah, no, you should do.
if you're watching this, you can give me a free
There
subscription.
you go.
I'll post about it. Let's go.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple lessons here for me is that virality isn't always the goal. I don't think that like Granola went into this being like, oh, let's go viral, let's create this like
Yeah.
thing. They took the idea of like Spotify Wraps, like let's do an end of year, review for people that based on their notes, but then they made it more about themselves and their users. Really focusing on the privacy, really focusing on like the things that people are saying, the content, and like what's actually in it, and then made the granola crunch based on those insights is what really worked. And then that's what made it go viral, because people felt like, oh my God, you actually put time and effort behind this, it wasn't just that you're kind of trying to do broad generalizations or broad categories of like the data and then trying to fit people into that, but you were making it more about the user and what you're telling me about me. And everybody loves to hear about themselves, right? So that's really what worked for
100%.
me,
Yeah.
right? This is why horoscopes are popular. The Hogwarts houses was so popular, right? Because it's like it helps you
Yes.
kind of figure out what you relate to and like where you fit in into like society.
These are so millennial coded, by the way, like
But
Hogwarts houses. Uh, we're
but they work,
millennials, yes, but
right?
they work. 100% work. Yeah.
So good on them for doing that. And then I'll throw in that accuracy over engagement is going to be far more useful for long-term trust than just trying to get people to engage with your content, which is what I think Spotify was trying to do with Spotify Wrapped. It's just like, let's just give them a couple things that they can kind of throw out, and then that people want to share, and that'll be that. Instead of trying to focus on the accuracy of like where people's actual music tastes,
Hmm.
fall in. Another thing here, though, to call out though is maybe people are moving more to like the center, But I think that's an overall Spotify issue because they're the ones
Yes.
pushing, generic music at you instead of trying to like filter you into hearing more in depth into the buckets that you're actually interested
Yeah.
to and not trying to shift you into listening to Taylor Swift because her album just came out, which is what I
Mhm.
hear a lot of people complaining about, where they're like, why am I being shifted over to Taylor Swift when I have never shown an interest in her music or the pop or, anything of the like? So something to think about for next year.
That's a really good point, yeah. My topic for today is Nvidia doing merch as marketing. So last week, Nvidia posted a job opening for the job title is like art director, gear and merchandise. It made me think about other companies that's been going hard on this for a while now, which is Palantir.
Hmm.
Everyone's favorite companies. They have really cool merch, at least for
Uh-huh.
me, at least for my taste.
Hmm.
And they went really big and they had a pop-up shop in Korea
That's right. I
a
saw
couple of
that.
months ago.
Hmm.
And I think this is really interesting. People wants to wear company swags from the company they like. People want to be part of a community. Again, this is in a way similar to how I wear baseball jerseys or Formula One merch,
Hmm.
if or any sports team, right? And it's kind of feel like, oh, if you know, you know, just that kind of vibe. And I think the best case scenario is, which is super rare, I think.
Hmm.
Imagine if you're a company merch and you can break through the pop culture stuff like
Hmm.
Hard Rock Cafe, tees, or if NASA. You kind of wear them just because they're cool. That's it.
Hmm.
And it gets me thinking. Okay, if I want my company merch to be like that, what would you do? So I think there's a couple of requirements that has to be done to make your company merch be the cool merch. First, I think you have to have a strong and likable presence behind the brand. It's usually like a person. Like for Nvidia, we have like Jensen Huang and
I mean, when
Palantir.
are they going to come out with leather jackets
I know,
that are
right?
like his?
I know, right? That's the thing. Will I buy it? I'm definitely gonna buy it. Alex Carp is basically a cult figure right now, and I'm not saying
Hmm.
this in a negative or positive way, but
No, no.
he is.
Yes, yeah.
And on the other side, you won't see someone rocking a Salesforce merch
Yeah.
because nobody wants to be Mark Benioff. I'm sorry, Mark, but
Yeah.
that's kind of like the way thinking because you're not cool enough as as a founder, right? Yeah,
Agreed. I
it's cool
mean,
having
back
merch.
even a couple years ago, Elon Musk had that, right? Where it's like you had people that were, fanboys and fangirls. Like they still are, but they're not as like overt about it as they used to be, right? Like there used to be
Yes,
more like Elon Musk like merch. The fact that, his cars were able to sell as much as
exactly.
they did when they weren't actually coming out has a
Yeah.
huge thing to do with him and his persona. So
Yeah, and also I think SpaceX merch is kind of we're still more the cool side, I guess.
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I would say SpaceX for sure. I mean, they're building rockets and doing what
that is
has
true.
essentially
Yeah,
been impossible, right? Which is to have the rockets take off and then come back. Like that,
hmm
they were the first company to do that. So
right.
that's amazing, right? They're literally rocket scientists. And I saw, this week that they're potentially going to do an IPO next year.
Andrew is one of the other
Hmm.
example. Parma Lucky is so cool. I would love to have an Andrew merch.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Andrew, if you're watching this, send me a merch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're putting
Yes,
out stuff, right? They've been
yeah,
putting out some merch, but they're also doing the that first like NASCAR race, like within right, like the military. So it's
exactly.
like they're
Yes,
building up this like persona for like the company, but then also Palmer, of course, that people want to follow and like be supportive of.
wait, and I mentioned a bit about how people want to be part of the cool community. This community doesn't even have to be people that actually use your product.
Yeah.
It can be like people who just YOLO their life savings
Hmm.
into your stock, like Palantir and
Hmm.
like GameStop, for example, a couple years
Yeah.
ago. So, um, so yeah, this is I think merch. I kind of see it as a walking billboard. And the lessons to be learned here, I feel like if you're a startup, small companies, don't half-ass it. Don't half-ass merch. Make it as cool as possible. Don't just make it like a T-shirt and your company name in front of it, which is ironic because I'm actually using it. I'm actually having like meme lord here, but we do have other merch. Like we have like a shorts that is like Windows XP wallpaper, and it went viral I think a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
And if Nvidia is hiring a specific person to make their merch cooler, then that means you probably need to put some effort on the merch. Something you need to take somewhat seriously if you really want to use this channel as a marketing. Especially, I think people will go out more and more. Next year, people will
Mhm,
touch grass more. Offline marketing, I feel like will
mhm.
be bigger. That's my prediction for next year.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, I think so. And that's I think just go double down on merch. People like again, like kind of mentioned before, people like to talk about themselves, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's a good conversation starter.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
tossing in here, so, I've been talking about, Timothy Chalamet and the Marty Supreme,
love that
tour,
guy. Yeah.
and merch has been a huge part of that campaign, right, of, like, the marketing, behind it. I just saw him show up at a, um, thing down in Brazil, and he showed up wearing a, like, Marty Supreme,
Wow.
jacket that was in, like, Brazilian colors, right, with, like, the yellow and the blue and the green. And I thought that
Wow.
that was, like, amazing, right? Because at this point, he's basically come out with a new jacket for, like, each, thing that he's, been in. So he had the original, like, navy blue with, like, the orange. He's come out with the bright pink one for the New York, pop-up,
Right.
situation that he had. He's had the followers and like the people like his superstar friends who have been wearing like the different, outfits. And then there were the four that were sold at the merch shop in New York. I think it was in LA yesterday. So like
Wow.
merch is a huge thing right now. If you make it unique enough. And I think that's part of what like you've been talking about here, where it's like so many like companies are just like you just pull it out as like, oh, we're going to a conference, let's bring like merch. And that's usually what you
Mhm.
just to like a t-shirt or like stickers, and like that's so played out right now. Like you need to be coming up with better, more interesting things that actually relate back to your
Yeah.
company and like your mission, your values and all that stuff, right? Some other examples here that have been like interesting that have been going, viral is like the Claude Anthropic like pop-up in New York where they have
Yes.
like the thinking cap,
Yeah.
baseball hat. So those are things where it's like clearly there's a lot more thought going into it than just like
100%.
put our logo on a t-shirt, right? And I
Yeah.
think that that's like what makes it special, right? Some of my favorite merch is like the merch that employees get when they have been like at a company for a certain amount of time, right? So it's like
Oh,
they
yeah.
have their own versions of like what's sold out to like the rest of the to everybody else that only they can get because they were part of like something. So that's I've had examples here with like um someone from Snapchat that was like the first 300 employees, they got special merch
Interesting.
because it's like, you were part of like the core team early on. So for like bigger companies like that, we see that like every so often, right? There's like the old Microsoft, like jackets
Yeah.
that they used to have that like now are on sale in like thrift stores or like, because they're coming back because like the original OGs of like giving them away or like, sold
Yeah.
them or whatever. Basically like marketing where it's like the people that know, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, that was like one of the OGs, like, merch from
Yes.
like back in the days, right? So I'm seeing like that stuff kind of like pop up. And then part of what I'm also seeing is a lot of nostalgia vibes coming into this as well, where it's like you have
Huh.
things that used to be popular with like millennials and like rock bands like back in the day kind of are coming up again where like I'm starting to see like the old logos for like sports teams, right? Where it's like
Yes.
no longer these new um
Yes.
the newer logos that like have
Yeah.
kind of lost some of their spirit, but it's like you have the old like Dodgers, the old
Yep.
Lakers, the Chicago Bulls, right? Like when they were like
Mhm.
during like Michael Jordan's time, where people are interested in it because it's like the old school logos and like it kind of
Yeah.
brings that attention to it. But then it also reminds you that like, hey, this used to be a big team back in the day.
And also, like, I think also relate to the whole thing, like, if you know vibe,
Hmm.
because, like, if you were, like, I don't know, like, 90s, like, Utah Jazz, like, training jacket, number one compliment for every man was like, "Hey, you know ball."
It's definitely like a way that like you can do that. So I see like, companies or teams dropping like special drops of like their merch that's only, available in like, certain markets, right? Like the huge one that we're seeing like, here in LA is like Shohei merch, right? Where it's like you have Japanese lettering for like the Dodgers. Obviously, we've had like Los Dodgers, right? They spell it with a
Yeah.
D O
Yeah.
Y E R S, right? Where it's like for that Spanish speaking audience, right? So it's like they're creating these different like merches for the audiences that want that specific type of merch. So it shows two things there where it's like, hey, we know you, we know that you're fans, and we're listening to you, and we're creating this merch specifically for you. But then it's
Mhm.
also giving people that may not know the language or but want to show that they're fans that like, hey, oh, I have the Shohei jersey, right? Or it's
Yeah.
like it's in Japanese. Or the I think his one for last year was the one with the cherry blossoms, right?
Mm.
It's not even just the jersey anymore, but like the different types of jerseys within that that kind of show how much more of a fan you are, right?
100%.
So
Yeah.
I think it's like really cool that you're like able to, give all those options to like your community and let them know that you're paying attention to them. Cause that's all,
Yeah.
people want to know is that like, hey, we're paying attention to you and we care. And it's not just the logo
Exactly.
slapped on or the team name slapped on and that's
Yeah.
it. It's like we're actually paying attention to you.
G
So I like when I saw that ad for the job, I was like, wow, that's actually really cool that they're like giving more thought to it.
They have the cool factor now, and I definitely have to ride it before they become uncool. There are some merch that even though it's good, you will never wear it just because the company ain't cool. Like, I will never wear a LinkedIn vintage
Yeah.
bomber jacket, for example. So,
LinkedIn
yeah.
catching strays, but so true.
Sorry, I love
So true.
LinkedIn. We got a lot of users there, honestly.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you for bringing that one. That's amazing. Okay, so you had this prediction about out of home being the next big thing, and I wanted to highlight the Percy Jackson fountain billboard here in LA. Basically, it's digital display and it has like the wave of water, and then there's an actual fountain that like has the water splash out into the fountain. And it's a real water tank that has like the cascading fountains and the mist
Mhm.
bursts, and it's all synced to the trailer footage. And so the water effects activated on the rhythm with the on-screen visuals are creating a literal splash zone on the sidewalk. Fits to the actual season 2 theme because it's called The Sea of Monsters. So it's a water heavy
Oh, yeah.
book. Billboards, they're not that special. So many weird ones in San Francisco these days that are, going for the rage baiting, which we'll talk about later. You had like the Friend AI billboards that we've talked about, but we've talked about other examples that have kind of like, been cool, which is like the Canva one in the Waterloo station in the UK,
Mhm.
which is kind of showing the different examples of like what you can do within Canva. Specifically on these like billboards in like a
Yeah,
new
yeah.
like funny way that like we'd never seen before. So the fact that like billboards are starting to become a thing that like people are putting more attention behind um is like really cool for me because it's showing that like we're trying to get more attention from people in different ways, right? I don't know what this says about the people that are driving because this is in LA, right? They're going to see like a
Yeah.
huge, fountain like come out. But we'll see what happens. It is in one of LA's highest traffic intersections. So people are going to be like seeing it. But I think another like thing here that's like really working is that it's not necessarily about the billboard itself, it's the attention that you get afterwards, right? So
Mhm.
I found out about it because people were just sharing about it on Twitter. And then from that, it's like you get the social shares and the engagement, and then you get like the press hits from it because it's like you have journalists talking about it because it's so unique and so different that they're just like, we have to talk about this like new billboard, right? And so it's not just that you're doing the billboard, it's that it goes viral because it's unique. And we've been talking about this here a lot, where it's just like nowadays, it's not necessarily that you're, just doing the thing to do it. They could have just done a regular billboard. It's the fact that they went that extra mile and put a little bit more thought behind it, said, hey, this is a season that's full of like water. Let's, bring it back to water. They're like, oh, we can put like a fountain there. So like, that extra thought of like how do we
Yeah.
do more with a thing that we were going to do anyways is what brought them the viral attention and has now gotten them got people to share it and like talk about it and make it go viral across social media. I joked about it on Twitter that like I'm sure James Cameron for the way of
Yeah.
the water would have wanted this to be a thing that his team thought came up with. It gives like drives like urgency because we know it's going to be temporary, right? Like it's only going to last a little bit. It's not going to be like a thing that's ongoing. So it, gets you to spend more money for a limited amount of time instead of trying
Yeah.
to do a thing longer. So that's the thing
Mm.
that we talked about last week with Stripe
Like
doing the mini city. So it's like they knew that that was going to be limited. So they're like, how do we show a thing for longer instead of, cutting it down and doing like a smaller scale, like time lapse of what the actual process was? It was like, no, let's live stream it, show what the entire building process is for the mini city, and then having that be the marketing that's like happening. And then people want to go see it, right? So for the Stripe thing, it's like you have the live stream, you tell people it's happening, you get them to engage with it by going onto it and seeing if they're being included. For this, people are going to go and drive out to Hollywood and Vine to see the billboard, right? And then this is like such a huge place for like tourists and locals. Like
Mm.
they go, some people might quibble that a lot of locals like going there, but it is a place
Yeah.
where you have it's a high traffic area. So I do see that like a lot of tourists and locals now will go purely to go see it and witness it. So it becomes like a huge thing that people want to do just because of the visual like aspect to it.
Yeah. I think I feel like the key kind of I won't say takeaway, but really I feel like the key thinking here should be like, okay, we spend a lot of effort and creativity on this one thing,
Hmm.
and how can we milk it as much as
Hmm.
possible in a way? So,
That's a good point.
I yeah, I feel like Ali, you mentioned about the extra attention from tourists or even locals want to see that,
Hmm.
but I do think the whole the digital part of it, the internet, the online marketing is the one
Hmm.
that actually brings in the bigger attention, just because like you say,
Definitely, yeah.
it's really
Hmm.
it's really unique, it's really
Hmm.
interesting. I don't think they're the first unique billboard that kind of do
Actually, I was
thing.
just thinking about this right now. Is I don't know if you remember when Final Destination, the
Uh-huh.
latest movie was coming out, and they
Hmm.
did the log truck
Oh yeah,
billboards
yeah,
on like the
yeah,
cars on trucks where
yeah,
it's like they had the
yeah.
the vinyl with like the image of the
That's
logs,
insane.
or
Yeah,
they had trucks with like actual logs, and then they had like the billboard over the side saying like Final Destination, and people are like, oh my god, yeah. So I saw a lot of photos of people just sharing, on the 405 driving, the
mm,
truck, which you may quibble, is that a billboard, is that not a billboard? But point is that
yeah,
it is an out of house, marketing campaign, and that people were
yeah.
like super into it because it was that like acknowledgement of like, oh my God, if you know, you know.
And I think the marketing mindset here has to switch from, instead of what is the best out of the house advertising that I can make,
Hmm.
and it's got to switch a bit into what is the best out of the house advertising that I can make, and what is the most shareable one.
Hmm.
So you kind of play around. Okay, this is good, but how do we plan to make it like more shareable? How can we
Yeah.
repurpose it better in the future? So I think, yeah, that'll be interesting. Like I said, I think people will go out more and
Hmm.
next
Hmm.
year, because I feel like people just want to touch grass a bit
Yeah,
more.
no.
And um it's a really good opportunity for marketers just to test, test their offline marketing muscle,
Hmm.
so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you do have to think it about the whole, okay, we made this cool shit, and then how do we make sure people online also find this cool?
Yeah, agreed. So a couple lessons here for me is that the spectacle needs substance. So there has to be a tie-in to your actual brand or like what your company
Yeah.
does. Here, the season is about the water gods, right? So by making it a water spectacle, a fountain, it really ties back to the actual season and brings, that attention of like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Same thing with Stripe, right? Like the mini city that they created were all the vendors that like work with Stripe, right? So it all kind of like makes sense. And then the other lesson here is that um, it's more important now to kind of create events and not just the ads
Yeah.
themselves. So this thing is like it's an event. Like we're gonna go and we're gonna participate. I want to go see the billboard. I want to take like video and like photos of it and see like what's actually happening. The same thing with the Stripe thing that we talked about was getting people to participate, watch the live stream. You don't even have to watch it all, but
Yeah.
you get to go in there. And then they leave it up and running so that you can go and like see the little city, but then also go and take like the photos of like, your company being featured in like the Stripe mini city. That's the thing to think about. It's like it's not necessarily just that we're doing this as like a campaign, but how are you leaving those
Mhm.
little Easter eggs for people to then go and like want to participate afterwards to get them to engage and create and do some of the marketing for you. And it's not just you putting out the
Mhm.
video.
Yeah, exactly. If you can create something that's shareable, right? I think people will appreciate craft more and more in the
Mm-hmm.
future, especially if it's tangible. It's kind of in the same line of the merch thing, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
people actually make this. It's a physical thing that I can
Mm-hmm.
touch. It will increase the brand trust. People like your brand more.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed,
Agreed.
yeah. Unless you're
Yeah.
LinkedIn, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, nobody really wants to associate with that
Uh,
brand.
I'm just
Awesome. Do you want to
playing.
do your last topic?
Yes. So this kind of relate to what you mentioned about how a marketing actually needs some substance behind it. I want to talk about rage bait marketing, which is something that I've been ironically I've been raging about for a long time. So last week, Paul Graham was in TBPN, the Tech Bros podcast. He was being asked about rage bait marketing, and he has strong words about it. He described rage bait as, I'm quoting here, that sort of technique sounds like the technique that will be popular with someone you describe as a bit of a scammer. All right. And the word rage bait itself is also the Oxford Word of the Year. And definition is online content deliberately designed to elicit anger or outrage by being frustrating, provocative, or offensive. People talk about how attention is number one thing. We are in the attention economy nowadays, but that's just doesn't make sense, right? Because not all things are built the same. So you know who else had a lot of attention? Like O.J. Simpson. He has a lot of attention. Is that good? Not really. Rage bait is really easy engagement, but it's also the lowest quality engagement you can get. Like in the long run, people will trust your brand less and less. For example, like Cluely. By the way, I think Roy Lee is actually a genius marketer. I want to put it here. He's actually a smart marketer.
Mhm.
But he used the channel that he used basically rage bait is I disagree with that. So Cluely went popular because he used the software to cheat.
It was a cheating software while he was
Yes,
at Columbia to get jobs at
right.
Amazon.
They keep doubling down on rage baiting, and which I think is not necessarily healthy. There's a lot of other examples on Twitter out there just doing also engagement strategies like putting down people or
Mhm.
showing off how good are they or how much MRR the apps have, like millions and millions. And I don't think that's good because you just elicit bad responses from people and bad
But I think that's
emotions.
part of the strategy, right? Cluely Friend AI is another one
Mm,
here within the tech world, but you also have that in like the manosphere space, right? Of
right.
just negging on
Manosphere, yeah.
women or minorities or people of color and all of that to rage bait them into getting that engagement. And I think part of that is the incentives that Twitter kind of gave
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
And so we saw recently that Twitter both changed the creator payouts, but then started putting the country, the country that where
Yes.
accounts are from, in order to show like who's actually engaging, right? And we learned that a lot of those accounts are not in America that are talking about American issues or political issues that are like causing a lot of divide and friction within the population here, right? And part of that is because they're incentivized to do that, right? The more
Yeah.
that you rage bait, the more that you get engagement, the more that you get paid out from an American company, right? And they were showing that a lot of the income that these people were making was coming from Twitter, right? And
Hmm.
comparing it to what their actual salaries are in their countries, it was a lot higher from
Yeah,
America,
that is
right?
true. Yeah. Yeah.
So those incentives have gone to create this, right? And it's not just Twitter, right? Like there's a lot of things that were happening in YouTube back in the day, and then
Yeah.
other smaller social profiles like Reddit, where like you kind of had this devolution of human interactions to create that rage bait, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of now gone everywhere, right?
Well, I think this is a really, as you know, it's a really bad phenomenon, and especially bad phenomenon when you are a brand, like a company brand,
Mhm.
compared to like. So I actually like a couple of hours ago, I talked to Sarah Whittle, and she's the former director of brand social for Duolingo and Crocs
Mhm.
and the YouTube channel Smosh.
Mhm.
And she said something really interesting to me. People can forgive people, but it's hard for people to forgive brands.
I mean, we're seeing that, right? I mean,
Yeah, we're
Duolingo is
seeing
actually
that.
a perfect example, right? Because that's the brand that Duolingo had
Right.
created with the bird, you know? And then,
So
you
yeah,
mentioned Cluely as well. Sorry, you
yeah,
mentioned Cluely as well. And that's also happening there, right? Like they just, I think it's been like 2 months now, they made the transition to they are no longer cheating software for,
they
interviews,
become an
but they
AI
are
note taker.
right. They're an AI note taker, right? And well, but that was right. But it changed before that, right? So it was the cheating software for interviews. Then it became the sales software for like doing sales jobs. Like what it was like following you along, and it would help you make sales, right? And then recently, it made this last pivot to being an AI note taker. At which point, it's just like, okay, you clearly not finding product market fit. You
Yeah,
think it's this note taker thing, but Granola is out here doing a
yeah,
much better job, and it's like happy, positive vibes for like the people that actually need it, right? And a lot of what people were saying when they came out, when they pivoted to being an AI note taker was that like, all this like rage baiting nonsense that you have had since the inception of the company and like the founder and like what he is trying to like evince and like the, what he's trying to put out there makes it so that I don't trust your company or the software to be a privacy first AI note
yeah,
taker for me. So that's where it's like you have the brand that has been created by the company long before this, latest pivot that is affecting whether people are gonna, trust your company.
yeah,
Roy Lee did put out that, they had the highest like revenue since then. So maybe we're doing it all
yeah,
wrong,
yeah.
but I just
Well,
don't think
at
it's gonna
this
work out in the long run.
exactly, but at this point, do people trust him? So it's
Hmm.
kind of related to the
Right.
way he put himself out, the way he put Cooley out there, and maybe it erodes the trust a bit. The term rage bait becomes so general right
Hmm.
now. Having a strong opinion about something is not necessarily rage bait.
Hmm.
Oh, I believe in this thing, this opinion, but
Hmm.
do people really want to know how does it affect my brand? So I think
Hmm.
brands should think about it too.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think satire also not a rage bait. I would say people like you won't see Babylon Bee or The Onion. It's a satire, like it's not a rage bait. Even though when you see the headlines, they kind of feel
Hmm.
like oh, it's rage baity. But
Yeah.
I think a satire has to be funny.
Hmm.
I kind of say it like it's similar. If a joke offends people, it's usually because it's a bad
So
joke.
in terms of like Friend AI, it's not necessarily that they did the billboard takeover in New York or LA. It's
Yeah.
more that like they don't actually seem to be putting effort, time, and money
Yeah.
into building the product to be decent or to be good, right? If you're spending, I think it was like $1 million on the New York subway
Yes.
takeover, and then
Yes.
500,000 here in LA. That's like $1.5 million that could have gone maybe into the R&D process of like the
Yeah.
actual friend pendant, right?
Mhm.
Which didn't go into that, and you're just using it to, market a product that even your users that like want to use it and want to like it don't
Mhm.
like it, right? It's got some of the
Yes.
lowest reviews on like the Apple Store. That's where it's just like, well, like what are you doing, right? Like why
Yeah.
you're still building a product that nobody can use or is unusable, but you're spending,
Yeah.
$1.5 million on marketing.
Exactly, like that $1.5 million, and when he does that, he doesn't even stand for something. He just like, "Ah, I have this
Mhm.
money and I spend it because it's ridiculous." It kind of feels like he just wants to have a reaction
Yeah.
that is he knew that it will be a negative reaction and he thrives on it. I just think it's bad karma for everyone, honestly.
Mhm, mhm. Oh,
If you
totally. I mean, it
yeah.
makes things more negative. That's why a lot of like the cases that, I've been bringing up was more wholesome. We talked about, the Carlos Sainz thing where it's like you have your users kind of engaging with you, the Stripe thing,
Mhm.
where I'm seeing is like we're moving into like a world where what we talked about earlier was like craft is becoming like the thing. It's like becoming the differentiator. And I just wrote an essay about this on Substack where handmade is a flex when
Mhm.
AI is taking over, because AI is so easy and
Yes.
so like cheap that like the companies that are using it and being very vocal about it, like Coca-Cola, and there was the McDonald's ads that just came out yesterday, are the ones that are being associated with slop, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you have companies that like want to be associated with premium and luxury and craft and making things, are spending time, money, and effort to build things, right? We had the Stripe thing, the Shopify example, the Barber and like Wallace and Gromit partnership. Like all
Hmm.
these things are showing that people are willing to pay attention instead of just defaulting to like AI to like, get you attention because you're trying to get attention.
Yeah.
But I mean, the companies that are going in full in on like the AI, McDonald's,
Hmm.
Coca-Cola, don't necessarily need to be associated with like premium because they're pretty much just, mass consumer-ish, right? But I think eventually it is going to reach a moment where
Yeah.
it's just like, is that what you really want to, be like drinking or be eating, right?
Yeah. They're the
And
food slop. Yeah.
exactly, it's just
Yeah.
slop. So AI
Yeah.
slop, food slop,
Oh
sugary,
yeah.
sweet slop, it's all
Yeah.
slop.
And kind of to piggyback on what you said, because like you said, like the name of the podcast is a meme team, so it's really just about
Hmm.
fun stuff or funny stuff
Hmm.
and the wholesome stuff. I think, and I've seen this. This is why I work at the software at a company called
Yeah.
memlore.com, because the thesis is really like people want to be entertained.
Hmm.
People keep doom scrolling all the time. They see like
Hmm.
negative things all the time. And the companies that can make them laugh or feel at least a positive
Hmm.
emotion will win.
Hmm.
Either it's like wholesomeness, either it is either whether is it it make you laugh. So memes is kind of like the easy way that
Hmm.
you can just make people laugh. So just trying to be positive when it's like 10 rage bait posts and there's a one meme that makes me laugh. So that's
Hmm.
enough. People remember your brand, remember who you are.
Awesome. Cool. Let's move on to takeaways. So for the Spotify and granola battle, viral metrics look good in dashboards, but if your users don't trust the data, you've trained them to ignore you. And
Hmm.
that's what's happening with the like Spotify. Little by little, people are just paying less and less attention to it. So optimize what makes your actual product stickier and not what makes the CMO's deck look prettier, or
Hmm.
like the analysis of like, hey, look at the huge numbers that Spotify got, right? How much actual engagement that was positive are they getting? Granola, most of the interactions, like what people posted, was mostly positive. And I saw a few people saying, like, oh, wow, like I want to become a granola customer because I want to get this next year for all my notes and like everything that they're talking about. So it's like working for twofold, right? It's keeping people from churning. They're keeping you because they love your product, and then bringing in new customers because they want to experience the
Yeah.
Granola Crunch next year.
Yeah. So I think the takeaways for me for the merchants marketing thing. So I think companies should really think in terms of offline marketing more, and merch is like the easiest way you can do that too, because it's like really in your control how to design it, who your supplier is, and you really just need to make it cool. Ideally, you need to make it that even though people who doesn't know your company still found it cool. So actually, sorry, it's gonna be a bit of a tangent, but last week I met with a friend in London. He was wearing a really cool cap, a really nice cap, and it's actually a cursor cap, but it looks cool. I would wear it, like nice color and nice logo and whatnot. So don't have us merch, keep going on it and go try to double down or at least experiment with offline marketing, like what Cursor did with Cursor Cafe
Hmm.
and whatnot, or
Oh,
go
yeah.
to events. So just go double down on that.
Okay. So, in terms of merch, I think what really works here is when it's being associated to an individual person. So, the Palantir example works because of Alex Karp and what he's
Yeah.
building out there. When is he putting out a sword? I want to know.
That is
Um, but I also gave the example of Timothy Chalamet with the Marty Supreme promo campaign for the movie, where he's been wearing that sweatsuit in different colors for different occasions. He's been giving it to other like top athletes to kind of associate Marty being a
Yeah.
ping ball, master. So he's giving it to Tom Brady, Michael Phelps,
Yeah. Lupe
um,
Fiasco.
Lupe Fiasco, right? And then we've also seen Kendall and Kylie Jenner wearing it. So actually, the mom, Kris Jenner, just wore it yesterday. So they're really pulling in all the
Shout
Kardashians
out
except for
Chris. Yeah.
Kim. When's her gonna come out? Maybe Christmas Day, right? To get that optimal like
Kim
attention.
Kim is busy with the bar exam. Don't bother her.
Yeah, right. No,
You wanna
no,
be a
she just
lawyer.
came out with the Skims streetwear,
Oh, the
remember? So
oh, yeah, that's true. Oh my god.
so maybe that's the tie-in right there, the
Yeah.
streetwear for Marty Supreme and the streetwear for Skims, right?
No, no.
Anyway, but the point is that like the merch eventually just transcends the company itself to become good just because people want to be associated with the thing itself, which is what we're seeing with like the Marty Supreme, right? Where it's like he had the pop-up in New York that everything sold out in 15 minutes. He just did the pop-up here in LA, where you had 600 people waiting in line to buy
Wow.
the merch. So it's transcended, Timothy and like the Marty Supreme like movie itself and gotten people to come out to pay attention because they want to participate in the thing itself.
Yeah, we're living in the
Um
Chalamet era.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then in terms of Percy Jackson, the billboard itself is not the campaign. It's the stage for what they want. So they do this huge spectacle to get people to come out and come see it, witness it themselves, but then also to talk about it, right? So it gets engagement online, and then it gets those press hits because people want to see it. How can marketers think about the things that they're putting out that, not necessarily cost more than like what you would have done, like the, Final Destination,
Yeah.
billboard thing, where it's like it's relevant to the movie and it brings, to mind like, that specific scene. So people associate with that, oh, like that movie's coming out. I want to go see it. This billboard's like, oh, the Percy Jacksons, the Sea of Monsters.
Hmm.
They're talking about the water gods. Oh, so it's like you get people to participate because they want to see it and then also are engaging with the content that's out there.
Yeah. So my takeaways for the rage bait marketing is like, first of all, just don't be a dick online. Honestly, people are very tired of doom scrolling,
Hmm.
and rage is the easiest emotion to get engagement. If you're depending on rage bait for your marketing, in the end, you just erode trust. People won't trust you anymore. And you probably, instead of like working on your product or getting product market fit, then you have to deal with animosity. So I don't think it's really worth it in the long run. If you want to elicit um emotion to people want relate want to make people relate to your brand, it really is easier to honestly just to make memes or just to make
Hmm.
them laugh, even though it's called the attention economy. I think not every attention are the same. Doing rage bait marketing for attention is like you're going to the house of your future in-laws, you pull down your pants and then do the helicopter. Like, yes, you get attention, but at what cost? So
Wow.
so
That's a visual.
I just want to nail the point down. Like,
Yeah.
don't just don't be just don't be an asshole online.
Yeah, I think that point exactly where it's like rage bait is optimizing for today's engagement at
Yeah,
tomorrow's, credibility cost, right?
yeah.
We're seeing that play in real time with Cluely and like
Yeah.
Royally, right? Where it's like you get all this attention for this specific thing. Now that they've had to pivot over to doing the AI note taker, nobody wants them to succeed, so it's like,
That's
why are you
exactly, yeah.
creating all these enemies for something that you don't have to, right? Like and that like now you have this new hurdle to overcome, which is that you need to get those people back on your side, and you're gonna have a lot of haters out there that are just wanting you to fail because you've done all this like rage baiting marketing to piss people off.
Yeah.
How are you gonna like come back from that? And we're seeing like even the engagement levels from like Roy Lee himself, like on Twitter, like have gone down. And then they've just become like the joke, right? I mean, I saw recently that they're moving to New York and they hosted some like, party that looked like a club promoter like
Yes.
thing. And they're just like, oh, okay. So like now
Yeah.
your brand is being associated with like club promoting. Like what's
And
going on here, you know?
people hate on that. Like,
Yeah. So you've created a whole bunch of haters through like the rage baiting, and you're probably never going to get those people back. And then eventually what happens is like you need to sell to the normies, right? You need to
yeah,
expand outwards.
yeah,
And
that's
if you've
true.
already
Yeah.
pissed off a whole bunch of people, you're never going to get those customers back, or you're going to have a higher, bar to have to get over to, bring them back into the fold, or to bring them into the fold, because you need to expand your audience.
Yeah. One last positive thing that I would say to those even like young marketers who wants to do rage bait marketing because it works. I guess these people like Roy Lee or the founder of Fan AI, I think his name's Avi, they are great marketers.
Hmm.
They know how attention works and they know how to get it. Now, if only they can use another way to to get those attention, they'll be people will look up on them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Where
Thank you
can
so
people
much.
find
It's
you?
been fun. So, I'm usually on X or Twitter a lot. My username is Jovian with 3 V's. I don't know why I did that. JOVVVIAN. You can also find me on LinkedIn because I actually post a lot of memes on LinkedIn. You can
Okay.
find Jovian Gautama on LinkedIn. You can DM me anytime. And you can also, if you want to reach out to me, talk about memes and stuff, reach out to me at Jovian at memelord.com. If you're on YouTube, you can watch this. Yeah. The best meme software on earth so far.
Awesome. And then you can follow me at Sonia Bashez everywhere, and the podcast at Meme Team Pod on YouTube, and then Meme Team Podcast on Spotify and TikTok. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sonia. Bye.